In this section, we're going to be looking at factors and greatest common factors. Let's start off with looking at prime factorization. Prime factorization are all the factors that are prime numbers that multiply in order to equal the number that we are prime factoring. So let's look at an example of this. We're going to write the prime factorization of 60. So we're going to use a factor tree method. So let's start with the number 60 at the top. Now we're going to draw two branches out from it. So what two numbers when multiplied give us 60? And if you can think of a prime number, that would help. So 2 is a prime number. 2 times 30 gives us 60. So we know that 2 is a prime number, so it can't go down any further. So we're going to try and break down 30. So think of another prime number that when multiplied gives us 30. So we get 5 times 6, which equals 30. Now we can still break down 6 because 5 is a prime number. So 6 can be broken down into 2 times 3. So we draw two more branches and then write 2 times 3. And we can circle all of our prime numbers so we don't get them confused. Now we can write out a line of multiplication: 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. So this would be the prime factorization of 60, and this can also be written as 2 to the power of 2 times 3 times 5. Now we're going to look at greatest common factor. Factors are numbers that are shared by two or more whole numbers, and those are called common factors. The greatest common factor would be the highest number. So let's look at an example. We're going to look at the greatest common factor of 12 and 32. So let's start off by writing all the factors of 12. Basically numbers that can divide 12 evenly that are smaller than 12. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Now let's look at the factors of 32. 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and 32. Remember that factors have to be either the same size as the number or smaller than the number. So we can look at both of these lists to find the greatest common factor. Let's start off by finding common factors. So we can see that they both have 1 and 1, they both have 2 and 2, and they both have 4 and 4. So out of these three common factors, the greatest of the common factors is 4. So the greatest common factor of 12 and 32 would be 4. Now let's look at another example of this. We're going to use the numbers 24 and 60 this time. So let's look at the factors of 24, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, and 24. The factors of 60, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. Now let's look at the common factors between the two numbers. We can see that they both have 1, they both have 2, they both have 3, they both have 4, they both have 6, and they both have 12. So out of these factors, we can see that 12 would be the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor of 24 and 60 is 12. Now we're going to look at an example of finding the greatest common factor of a pair of monomials. So here we have 3x cubed and 6x cubed. What you want to do is you want to break down each term. So because it's 3x cubed, you can rewrite it as 3 times x times x times x. And then below it you can write the simplified version of 6x cubed. So that would be 6 times x times x times x. So we can see that they both have 3 x's. And because they both have 3 x's, we can write x cubed below that, because we know that that's going to be part of the common factor, because they both have x cubed. Now, seeing as we broke down 6 into prime factorization of 2 times 3, we can see that they have the common factor of 3. So we bring down the 3 also. So our greatest common factor of the two numbers would be 3x cubed. Now let's look at another example of this. We're going to do the greatest common factor of 4x squared and 5y cubed. So again, let's start with the 4x squared. We want to break it down. So we know that 2 times 2 equals 4, so we're going to break it down to prime numbers. So 2 times 2 times x times x. Now let's look at the 5y cubed. If we break it down, we get 5 times y times y times y. We can see that the x and y's are different variables, so in the variable section there's not going to be a common factor. And then between 2 and 5, the only common factor would be the number 1, because the number 1 is the only thing that can be divided into both of those. So the greatest common factor of 4x squared and 5y cubed is 1.